Well, 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 we are discussing once more the idea of the Montreal Canadiens potentially getting rid of their sheriff. Yeah, today we're going over to another radio hit. This one was on TSN 690 from earlier yesterday, because you had David Pagnotta of the fourth period going out there and talking about how teams are always interested in Montreal Canadiens D-man Arber Xhekaj. The audio is about 20 minutes in length, and I'll leave a link in the description if you want to dive into that yourself. It's a nice little thing to listen to while doing chores, I guess, or going on a run, or playing NHL 25 like me, but ultimately, the fourth period's main insider goes out there and talks about the Montreal Canadiens, and we are diving into the updates as to Xhekaj and his trade situation. To help us out, we're going over onto an article published on HabsFanatics.com. This will also be linked in the description if you wanted to dive into it. See notably an excerpt of what Marc-Olivier Cook of DLC reports. David Pagnotta spoke on Arber Xhekaj on the radio and shared an interesting piece of information in recent months. Kent Hughes' phone did indeed ring regarding Xhekaj. Pagnotta says, one team wanted to offer a late first-round pick for Xhekaj. The Canadiens said no thanks, we like what we have right now. And when you think about it like that, this is a very simple video topic, that's it. Like, there's nothing else about this that I think we really need to go out there and discuss. But the main meat of this idea is straight up just Montreal rejected a trade for a first-round pick for Arber Xhekaj? Now, I know we've made a bunch of videos talking about the sheriff, talking about his trade situation, going over how teams are interested in this guy and what the price could be. But ultimately, when you combine this with all the thoughts that we've had over the past 3 weeks or so, with the Montreal Canadiens potentially not really using Xhekaj in a meaningful role, whether or not Marty St. Louis has some sort of a falling out with the guy, which, you know, we can debate the legitimacy of those claims. I think a lot of people would go out there and say it's not really a real thing, but we did have those conversations in the past. And so, diving into it, if the Montreal Canadiens legitimately had a first-round pick on the block for Arber Xhekaj, they had themselves an opportunity to send this guy away for that first, you gotta really start to admire what Kent Hughes sees out of this dude. Because to not trade away what was essentially a free player for a first-round pick is kind of insane. And I say free player as in, like, this guy literally is the definition of a comeback out-of-nowhere story. Because Arber Xhekaj was undrafted in the NHL, the Canadiens did not use any draft pick on him, he was signed out of nowhere as a free agent, and he eventually worked his way up from being an OHL guy to an inevitable Canadian, and he made his debut with the team in 2022-2023. He had a presence, he was getting penalty minutes, and he was scoring some points, actually. He had 13 points in his 51 games in his rookie season, and then followed that up with 10 points in 44 games the year after that. He had a short stint with the Laval Rocket where he was at 11 points in 17 games, so a very good point production metric, but this season he's only got 1 point in the 16-game sample, and he's already been in and out of the lineup throughout the year. And when you consider the other defensemen that are on the team, Arber Xhekaj is definitely in a tough spot. There's a reason, after all, why we were talking about him getting traded at different parts throughout the past month or so. So when you think about it like that, hey, are the Canadiens putting all their chips like they can into Arber Xhekaj? The answer is no. Is it a Marty St. Louis thing, or is it a Kent Hughes thing? Is it really just the fact that he's not that good enough? I'd say a lot of people have really gotten cold on Xhekaj over the past year and a bit, especially compared to what he was doing in the first season of his career. Sure, it was nice to see a guy who was a great story, out of nowhere, OHL to NHL guy, depth defenseman, physical edge, the sheriff, he polices guys, he fights, he hits, he can score some points. But I think as the years went on, especially last season, you had a lot of fans kind of rebounding and saying, hey, okay, like, he has a shtick, that's great, but Arber, you gotta stop taking penalties. You gotta be more careful with what you do on the ice and how you discipline yourself. Having your role and having your shtick is great, but you gotta not drag the team down. And that entire reason is pretty much why he got sent down to Laval in the first place. Now it's 24-25, a year after. He's still getting penalty minutes, maybe not as much as he did last year. And I guess you can say that's a good thing, right? Like, he's 23 years old, and he is a tad more disciplined than before, but at the same time, he has declined in point production. So maybe this is how things are. They're perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Maybe on a team with less of an offensive opportunity because you have Lane Hutson and Mike Matheson as other left-handed guys on the squad now, it reduces the amount of offensive impact a guy like Arber Xhekaj can bring, but at the same time, he is defending a little bit better, and he's not taking as many penalties. So what's the evaluation on that? For a guy who's 23, where do you go with this? And do you play into the idea that Marty St. Louis just has not trusted this guy to the same capacity that he's trusted other players? Now, I get it, it's not earned. You have to earn your trust with this coach, and Arber Xhekaj, throughout certain parts of his career, had not done that. But when you think about how Montreal had an opportunity to grab themselves a late first-round pick for this player, you have to start wondering where exactly Kent Hughes is internally evaluating this player at. What do they think he can be? Because I'll tell you, a late first-round pick is not a small deal. You got yourselves Michael Hage, recent first-round pick, late first-round guy. Philip Machar, late first-round guy. Owen Beck, I get it, he was a second-round pick, but he was the first pick of the second round, so technically you could say he's in that range of being a late first-round guy. And when you think about the conversation with Michael Hage in particular, I mean, a lot of people have been comparing his game to Jack Eichel, and it could be this, it could be that. We had made a video about that earlier in the year, by the way, so you can go ahead and check that out. But if the Canadiens had another chance at getting a player like that for the right old price of Arber Xhekaj, you have to see what Kent Hughes is cooking here, because if he rejected that trade, he thinks that Arber Xhekaj is worth keeping around more than another late first-round pick, then you have to start wondering what the plan is here, especially when you consider the fact that Arber Xhekaj is one of many defensemen on this team that does exist and that will be in a spot to potentially do some damage long-term. I get it, there's already some concern as to whether or not he really does have a role with this team. What, with David Reinbacher, Mailloux, you've got Lane Hutson, you've got Cayden Goulet, and then add on Mike Matheson if you really wanted to keep him around, or you wanted to add on Jayden Struble, or any of the other guys that do exist in the Canadiens core. Is there even going to be space for Arber Xhekaj? So with all this in mind, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comments section below how Arber Xhekaj's career is in a pretty interesting spot. If Kent Hughes was offered a first-round pick for this dude and he said no, I don't think there's realistically anything that a team could offer that Kent Hughes would accept a trade for. Like, okay, obviously, oh, McDavid for Xhekaj, yeah, of course, he's saying yes to that, but, like, within reason. I'd say that maybe the max price a team would even be willing to consider for a Xhekaj, a guy who's got this role, he's got this physical element, and it's, in a way, unique. If you wanted to say that a team would be really, really dying to get that onto their team, I'd say a first-round pick is probably the max that any team would be willing to pay. We already spoke earlier in the year as well that if a team were to get Arber Xhekaj, they probably would use him more. They'd give him more of that spotlight. Would it not be fair to say that Marty St. Louis and the Montreal Canadiens haven't really been doing that as of late in a way to hopefully give Xhekaj the willpower to start disciplining himself more and playing more meaningful hockey beyond just hitting and fighting guys? So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this rejected Arber Xhekaj trade. Do you think it's worth it? Do you think it's not? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.